guide our way. We're the spacemen sailing the cosmic bay. From Jupiter to Saturn we'll deliver our freight on our starship, sailing through the interplanetary strait. With a hardy crew and a cargo of dreams, through the nebula's mist we'll forge our own schemes. In the vastness of space where no man has been, we'll navigate, chart the unexplored galactic highway. Evil maze upon the starry sea, we're the spacemen sailing through infinity. With our voices loud and our spirits free, we'll voyage across the celestial sea. Voyage across the celestial sea.
In the abyss of the cosmos we set sail. Through crimson skies our ship prevails. Across the stars a celestial flight, metal warriors bound by might. Ooh, yeah. In this realm of shadows darkness unfurls, a symphony of chaos, where planets whirl and nebula of fury untamed, sailing through the void where nothing's the same. We ride through the cosmos, a metal storm, defying gravity, our spirits transform through supernovas and celestial crimes. Our stellar voyage forever in the skies.
Digging deep in the Martian soil, searching for that precious oil. With pickaxes and heavy hearts, we're the miners of the cosmic shore. On this barren land, we march as one, unearthing treasures under the sun. In the cratered plains where no one dreamt, we're the pioneers on this frontier we're sent. Oh, we mine on the red planet soil, drilling down, down, down for the treasures we toil. With grit and determination, we push ahead for Mars' hidden riches. We're truly bred. We're truly bred.
chosen. Sailing through the cosmos, it's my final voyage, leaving Earth behind, seeking stars to my homage in the depths of space. When no one can hear, I'll sing my space shanty. Let the stars draw near, raising up the anchor, setting sails to the sky, bidding farewell to this world, no tears left to cry. With constellations as my compass, I'll navigate to the outer realms where my fate awaits. Oh, I'm a stargazer, drifting through the night, chasing dreams that sparkle like stars shining bright. I'll serenade the heavens with my cosmic lullaby, a space shanty melody as I say my last goodbye.
Alrighty, stream time. Sorry, I was a bit late. I realized I didn't have hydration available, so I quickly had to go and mix that up. Okay. Screen. Hello? Ooh. No, that's too close. Give me a second. That's better. Except for that area. Why are we... haven't changed anything between today and yesterday. Has got something happening over here? Not that. Not that. Okay. Alright, hope everyone's well. Okay, that's problem 1 sorted. Problem 2. There we go. Problem 2 sorted. Alright. Problem 3 is my microphone's going to fall off again. So, give me a second. Okay, problem number 3 sorted. Problem number 4. Problem number 4 sorted. Of course, hit the ground and it rolled away. Alright, next problem. Going partially deaf in the ear because the microphone or headphones aren't working. Anyway, very eventful start to the stream. Let me catch up. Good morning, Nigel, Plexus, Captain, Marcus, Samantha, D, and everyone else. I hope you're having a fantastic morning. Right. I hope you're having a fantastic day too, Samantha. Do. Yes, got a nice busy day. Okay, I'm mostly caught up. Just scanning. Yes, tears in space-time are my specialty. Good morning, Postmatic. I hope you have a fantastic birthday. Happy birthday. Okay, we settled. We've got everything sorted. This is awesome. So, I'm definitely going to have to get a new schmuck jacket thingy. The buttons are loose again. So at this point we're replacing them, re-sewing them every couple of weeks. To the point where the fabric's actually damaged. And it's mainly because of the cheap buttons. Right? Or just a particularly... Yeah. Well, my glasses have anti-glare, which makes it blue. Good morning, Laughhauler 2300. I hope you're doing well. Heading for bed? That's awesome. I hope you have fantastic dreams. But anyway, I'm going to have to find a better tailor and get a better suit made. Well, jacket. I'm not sure whether I'm going to go with the exact same design or something else, but time will tell. Good morning, Kandaria. I hope you're doing well today. Okay, just making everything is working. Can slouch a bit so that I'm not topping off in the camera. And there we go. Awesome. Awesome. I don't know whether I'm going to make it more militaristic. I don't know how I could make it more militaristic other than putting medals on it. It's pretty militaristic as it is. I might change the colors a bit. So it would be anything but green or yellow, because yellow would be in the green spectrum. So I'll probably get either this made or a black and a black and red, or a navy blue and red, something like that. I'll speak to people smarter than me, i.e. Taylor, for a color scheme. No, I just feel that the moment I start adding medals, even if they're fake medals, it's kind of Stolen Valor-ish. Too close to Stolen Valor for my liking. So, and I absolutely don't want to confuse anybody, because in some countries it's illegal. think it is illegal in South Africa to pretend to, or to have a uniform that could be confused for an official uniform. Good morning, James. Hope you're doing well. Okay, yes. So yeah, my glasses are anti-glare, which is blue. These lights are actually yellow? Orange? To give me a nice complexion, instead of making me look like a pale ghoul from the depths of the basement. Yes. So as the moment I start adding medals and stuff, it will look like a real uniform. Whereas this just looks weird. Still militaristic, but weird. I don't think for South Africa it's irrelevant whether it's for monetary gain. It is still illegal. That's not good, James. But yes, so I mean, I like the epaulets. I like the general design of it. I mean, I put this here. It's Velcro. I meant to get a patch made, like aggro. And then I had one on this side. Which side did I have it on? This side. Another patch. Where I was going to put the channel logo. But I never got that far. Trying to find somebody to make custom patches for me was a bit of a pain, so I gave up. And 99% of the time you can't see it on the camera anyway. But I mean, the next one needs to be more comfortable sitting down, and then also not right up my arms like that. Yeah, we can do that. I was thinking of the wings and ASN, but we can do a vector squirrel getting ready for some fisticuffs. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm moving to another country, so we're going to have to check the laws there. Well, I'm thinking about that. Let me send an email. I just realized I should probably check Portugal's illegal or restricted. Okay. So, before I do anything, we need to find out if the place where I'm going, whether it's legal or not. I imagine it is, but you never know. Ignorance of the law is not a suitable defense in most cases. I've got plenty of ideas. Don't worry about it, Marcus. I mean, I want to keep it pretty simple. I want to keep it like this. Because I think it's part of the brand now, this sort of safari suit type jacket. It just needs to be more comfortable and better made. Yeah, petrol can mess up your brain. Something awful. Yeah, fair enough, D. I mean, it very much depends on the country. I mean, but I don't know. We've got a lawyer sorting out our immigration, so we'll just send her an email asking. Yeah, I could also do a t-shirt. No, I didn't, James. The other thing that I really need, which is difficult, is most of the PO Box services in the United States require my name, and that becomes public information. So I don't really want my name to be public information, which is why I've sort of not looked too deep into a PO Box. The other thing is it'll cost me money to send it to me from the US, and if I'm moving country soon, I'd probably want to wait until I'm settled on that side before I start sending mail from the States. And that's pretty much all you can do. Sit in a well-aerated room. Keep drinking water. I don't want it to be too complicated. Because, I mean, you only see the uniform from the chest up. So with chains, they make noise. So I don't want chains. Medals, they'll make noise, so I don't want medals. I mean, these epaulets, originally they were actual epaulets, but when they caused a little gap, if I raised my arm, it would mess up the green screen, because it creates a thing like this, and if you do it just right, the green screen doesn't work. So I had to stick them down. So they're not actually functional epaulets anymore. Well, I think anything that a reasonable person would consider an official uniform would be illegal in most countries. But I've sent the request off. We shall hear back from our lawyer at some point. Sure. But again, I think most countries, if an average person looked at you and thought that you were an official for the country that you're in, then that's normally illegal if you're not actually an official. But yeah, we'll wait for the lawyer to get back to us, and then I will go to the tailor to see what I can see. Good morning, Katina. I hope you're doing well. I am nowhere near 30. Or 18. Actually, further away from 18 than 30. And conscription normally is citizens, not foreigners. Good morning, Lord Volpex. I hope you're doing well. Awesome. You normally don't add foreigners to your conscription because that could bring spies in. But I'm not a historian or lawyer. Yes, I'm both a young man and an old fogey. It's all relative. I'm a young man to my dad, and I'm an old fogey to kids. I'm in that unique middle ground. Right, let's get some work going. We are going to continue with the, happy. Re-Tifos. Mouse. Come here. Good morning, Bob Allen. I hope you're doing well. Fair enough, Marcus. Fair enough. Yeah, so, I mean, conscription is almost always citizens first. Yeah, I hope so too, Kandaria. I hope so too. England wasn't working, so now we're working on Portugal. A bit of a kick in the pants and wallet. That I, as a British citizen, have an easier time getting into Portugal with everything considered. Okay. As far as I know, the Foreign Legion was... so, due to... I don't know how to say this. Reasons. We'll go with reasons. I can get in, because I have a British passport, so easy peasy. My wife could get in with a lot of work, which we were doing. But some other... my brother-in-law couldn't get in. No matter what we tried, we couldn't get him in. And we can't leave him behind. So, we had to change what we were doing. Canada doesn't want me. I'm just going to say is no country wants me. I do not get through on any form of visa other than money, which is why we're going to Portugal. I do not possess any skills that any country is actively looking for. So, immigrating through as a skilled worker, which is mostly the only way, I cannot do. And then, economically, I cannot afford any other country. So, that is the cold, hard truth. I may be a successful YouTuber, I may be a successful business owner, but that doesn't mean countries want me. Fair enough, Bob. America is $100,000. Or, I can get through, if the money option is $100,000, or a 4-year process and about $50,000 of money for lawyers. And that doesn't include my dad, my brother-in-law. Those would be extra. That would just be for me and my wife. Well, you'd think that, James, but not that much. Well, the problem with entering a country illegally is that you're a criminal the moment you enter a country, and I'd rather not do that. Fair enough, Robert, but not for me. If I'm going to enter a country, I'll do it legally. That way, if things turn, I've got legal backing. Something like that, James. It gets a bit complicated. For America, I can get through on a talented individual visa, but there are certain requirements I need to meet, and I can bring my wife through. So that's not a problem. That's the 50,000 and 4 years. My dad and brother-in-law would have to come through on a different visa, so different money. Oh, this is my favorite story. Alert! Alert! This is the story I keep talking about and keep forgetting the name of. It is also got a gloriously clickbait title, which is, What Makes Humans Special? Click here. So this is it. This is the story. Eon, the Xeno side, I do, but not very often. I did have 6 books in the works, and then I had to get 4 surgeries, and a year and a half of recovery, so those kind of didn't happen. Yeah, so I mean, look, it gets complicated. For every country, it gets complicated. It depends on the visa you're coming through on and how you're doing it. So the entrepreneur visa, it's between $100,000 and $1 million. Depending on stuff. Thank you very much, Eon, the Xenocide. It's very much appreciated, and I'm glad you're enjoying the content. Yeah, well, I don't have trade papers, so that's not going to get me anyway. And plus, I would have to actually do the trade, which I'm a professional audiobook narrator YouTuber at the moment. So, there is that. The Portuguese visa isn't bad. It's a lot more reasonable than a lot of other countries. And then in 5 years I have a European visa, so all things considered, could be worse. Kind of. I also went to trade school. My high school was a trade school, an actual full-bodied trade school. But the trade I did in trade school became relevant. And after school, I went into a different direction rather than trade. But I mean, I've done shop fitting, laborer, that sort of stuff over the years. Plexus, this one here, that one. Bah. That's the favorite story. We're redoing it with energy this time. This is it. Yeah, my dad was a millwright, yeah. I wasn't. I went into this weird field called electronics. This was in the 90s. Electronics is basically just advanced electrical now. It doesn't exist as a trade. It was like a new experimental thing in the school. Yeah, my dad does machine installation. And I mean, I helped him out, so. Yeah. But yeah, so my trade just disappeared off the face of the planet. But thankfully I did a 7th subject in school called, are you ready? This was a very new thing back then. Computer programming. And that's what I did when I left school. Well, that's what I tried to do. What I did was a lot of other things. Yes, modern electronics is very different than the electronics that I was taught. The electronics in the 90s was basically just advanced electrical work with some extra calculations. Good morning, Slow Motion. Hope you're doing well today. But basically, it's been 23 years of messing up and doing the wrong things and making the wrong choices, and then Bird eventually succeeding. Really pissed off Bird. Yeah, pretty much those sorts of things. So it was like transistors, resistors, that sort of stuff, which eventually my dad got into because of some of the repairs he used to do. But I just went into computers, which meant that I worked in every field but computers for a very long time. Okay. So, everyone remember, What Makes Humans Special is my favorite story. Clickbait title. This is probably why I keep forgetting it. It's this one. My personal favorite. Okay. Exciting stuff. I'm actually quite happy to do this. I'm reasonably happy to do this. 4,000 stories, and this one still hits the nail on the head. Okay, teleprompter. Yeah. So, before I started this channel, we were kind of desperate for money, and I hadn't been in the computer field for 15 years. So I said to my wife, "Well, let me see if I can get a job in the computer field." And I went, and I mean, being out of the computer industry for 15 years is basically the same as never being in the computer industry. But I went and I did some basic research. And I went to my wife and I said, "Look, to get a job, an entry-level job of a support tech, I would have to have 10 years of experience in various things. I would need to know every operating system. There's just a massive list of stuff that I would have to know just to get the basic job." And I said, "And I would earn less than you because that's the way it is." My wife was a bookkeeper at that time. So I would have to learn more than her in high school to earn less than her. Might as well just learn bookkeeping. I mean, when you get into the specialist roles, sure, that's when you start getting the money. But in the generalist roles, what they require of you is massive. And at that time, people were still like, "Well, you need certifications." And I'm like, I don't have money for certifications. And why do I need a certification in XP? I mean, it's a 20-year-old operating system. Why? I mean, I know it, I used it, but why do I need to get degrees, or not degrees, papers for these things? So we started this as a Hail Mary pass before more drastic stuff. And thankfully, it kind of worked. Good morning, Matty D. I hope you're doing well. Plexus, yes, I have written some. The most recent one is the 100k special. That is Aggro Squirrel special, unique. But yeah, I prefer narrating to writing. Yeah, very much. Okay. We got that. We got that. We can close that. And we can move this. And head into... Really? What the hell is going on? Everything is just off a little bit. Just enough to be annoying. And it's odd, because I haven't done anything. Haven't moved anything. can only think that it's the dog and cat messing around. Anyways, story mode, people. Glasses off. Video recording. And audio recording. Let's have it. Let's have at it. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across... Nope, this is not Tales from Outer Space. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-Tifos, where I take old stories that I've done and update them to new standards. Now, this story is something special. Everybody keeps asking me what my favorite story is, and I say, I can't remember. I can't remember the title. It was one of the first ones. This is it. This is the story. So, I hope you watch this story to death, and then just watch it again, and again, and again, so that this story can get the most views on the channel, so that I can never forget what the story is called ever again. So, let's get on to the story. What makes humans special? Click here to find out. My personal favorite, written by Regal Legal Eagle. When I look back on the fateful day, I always find it funny how quickly my entire mood changed the moment I stepped into that room. When our expedition fleet found nothing short of an armada waiting for us in what we assumed was just another system, uncharted. Waiting for us in what we assumed was just another empty, uncharted system, I thought I was in some sort of nightmare. As we tried to communicate, the bridge was incredibly tense, and the only thing keeping me together was knowing that I had to reassure the other captains that everything would be fine. All sorts of things rushed through my head. Were they hostile? Would they destroy us? Would we be subject to horrible experiments? I wasn't particularly optimistic. I wasn't a particularly optimistic person. When we finally established some shaky translations, we discovered that they weren't simply going to blow us away, which was nice. But we did learn that they were from some sort of massive empire, which set me on a new set of worried thoughts. Was this the start of some grand war? The Second Interstellar War had just finished, and the thought of taking Xenos in open conflict for the first time and did not seem promising. Then they said they wanted to talk to the human in charge. Well, since that was me, I told them that I'd be arriving in an unarmed shuttle shortly. While the shuttle didn't have any weapons on it per se, I did have the armory load all the explosives we had into it and give me a remote detonator just in case. Flying the ship over to that armada, I was struck by just how uniform everything was. Compared to the ever-changing fleets that I was used to, it looked like every ship they had was built and designed for a specific purpose. It was rather awe-inspiring to think that some Xenos who had been hiding from us all this time had perfected their ideal ship designs and hadn't had to retrofit the ship in their lifetime. Looking back on our small fleet, I couldn't see two designs that matched. Technically, the Stingray and Rover had started life with the same design, but over the war, the Stingray had been turned into a comm hub and had all sorts of obviously bolted on dishes and antennae all over the place. It looked more like a pufferfish than a Stingray. The Rover, on the other hand, had been set up as a courier vessel. So, some of the old parts had been stripped away so that they can make it sleeker and add bigger engines. How barbaric we must have seemed to them, though. I thought. The hangar on the capital ship was much the same. I saw rows and rows of pristine, identical craft. Everything was clean, uniform, well-designed. If it came to a war, we'd be crushed, I figured. The soldiers that escorted me were the only aspects that weren't uniform. They had 3 or 4 different species in clean-looking armor suits. It was hard to keep decent pace, since they all had different legs and moved at various speeds, but their armor and weapons looked far less improvised than the Marines back of my ship. But then I entered the boardroom at the center of the ship to meet the various dignitaries waiting for me, and all my worries changed. I wasn't a xenobiologist or a psychologist or the like, but you don't get as far as I did without learning how to read people. Even Xenos I'd never seen before. They were nervous. I held back a laugh and wondered instead why these massive... I held back a laugh and wondered instead why this massive armada would be nervous about a lone human from a small expedition fleet. They asked me to sit down behind a desk before the panel of dignitaries, and my first thought was presenting my thesis back in college before being pressed into naval service during the First Interstellar War. They took their time setting up a translation device for me, seeming to want to study me for a bit as I waited. I just smiled back at them, filled with confidence which clearly unsettled them further. Finally, the device was set and the conversation began. They introduced themselves and explained to me a little about the Confederation. They were democratic, which was good. They didn't seek out war, which was good. But they were very nervous about our young species. At first I figured they just meant that as in we were the most recent to make it to this level of technology. I asked them why they were so nervous, and they got quiet. Then came the big question that I hadn't expected.
How have you developed your technology so quickly? Are you being guided by another spacefaring species?
I laughed at first, thinking that it was an absurd question, but then stopped when I realized it was serious. I was confused and, of course, explained that this was our first contact with another intelligent life form, let alone a whole gathering of them. They looked at me more nervous. They looked a little more nervous then.
Are you driven by war?
I explained to them that we weren't.
And they said, then how have you developed your technology so quickly? The last time we sent a probe to your world, you had just developed the technology to sail across your largest ocean. From what we could tell, you hadn't fully mastered gunpowder yet. This fleet was assembled to approach your home at what should have been the early years of your industrial age to help guide you, only to find out that you've spread not just to your local system, but in a range of 100 light years. How is that possible?
I laughed again for a moment because it seemed absurd again to me. They were likely talking about the 16 or 1700s, and they figured 500 or 600 years later, we would have just reached the industrial age. I told them that we'd gone from the first powered flight to landing on the moon in roughly 66 years, and they gasped. They said that it was impossible. How could we have developed so fast? I thought it over for a moment. I wasn't a philosopher by trade, even though I'd gone to school for it all those years ago. It was the sort of thing I hadn't bothered to ponder in quite some time. I sat there quietly as they watched me and thought it over. I was tempted to say that war drove our ability to learn and develop quickly, but that just didn't sit right with me. There were plenty of periods in our history that weren't overly violent, and yet still we developed. Then we just seemed ready to demand an answer. Just as they seemed ready to demand an answer, I remembered a rather simple conversation I had with a fellow captain. He had commented on how his children got upset if they went more than a week without a vid from him, despite the fact that when we were young it took months to get vids back from the forward fleets. They took everything for granted. So I finally spoke. I'm sure this wasn't how many politicians or academics would have wanted me to phrase it, but my time with the Navy had made me blunt.
We get bored quickly. Not only that, but the speed with which we turn the amazing into the mundane is staggering.
They were obviously confused.
We did go from our first basic airplanes to landing on the moon in about 66 years. But 30 years after that, people were already starting to find going to space rather boring. People wondered why we spend so much money on it. It took another 40 years after that to focus on it once more. In that time, we developed communication technologies at a staggering rate. We connected our world in a way that had never been done before. But almost before we were finished, people were trying to create something else. I laughed for a moment as I thought it over. We could fly across the globe in hours, but most people complained that the planes were cramped and the food was bad. We would create our first wireless networks that could stream the full collection of human knowledge to the phones, and people complained about the speeds and reliability, even though they wasted all their data on frivolous things. Once we established our first colonies on the moon and then Mars, taxpayers began to complain about how much it cost, and tourists again complained about how long it took to get there, or how zero-G made them sick. The more I thought it over, the more it made me laugh, as I had to explain to this panel of Xenos that boredom spurred our advances. Our species is made of consumers. You can take any amazing, incredible discovery that took a team of engineers a lifetime to create and find a person bored with it in a very short time. It took adventurous souls to start the first colonies of our world. It took adventurous souls to start the first colonies of our homeworld, but it took normal, bored citizens to truly make those colonies work. When someone was willing to move to Mars or Saturn because they could get a 10% raise, that's when we knew we needed to keep going. The first test pilot that jumped into another star was a hero to us for all of a few years. Then we wanted to know why everyone couldn't jump to another star. I shrugged. Our wars are only because we're bored. As soon as survival on the first colonies around the other stars became easy, they got bored. With bored colonists comes rebellion. The second war we just finished, well, everything was quiet and peaceful until the first colonies became the first core planets and travel between our furthest colonies became steady. When I first jumped to another star system, I was thrilled and excited. But I looked around the bridge of the ship and noticed that everyone else was bored. Just another routine jump to an uncharted system for the sake of testing out our equipment. This was the furthest humanity had ever gone. But the first thing the captain said was simply, "Feck, that star's bright. Feck, that star's bright. Someone hit the shades and plot us a course back." No one thought anything about it. I laughed once more and smiled back in memory. Going into the jump here, my crew was bored and I was thinking about what to have for dinner. I'm now light years further out than we've ever been, and something like 90 light years away from the first jump I took. I had to field complaints from some of our crew that we've run out of fruit juice sooner than expected. Not that our ships are slapped together, and we have to continuously fix them. Not that in case something catastrophic happens, we're too far from help to be saved. Not that they miss their families. Fruit juice. I was quiet for a moment as I thought back to see if I had missed anything, and then threw up my arms. How could I forget? In a month or so, I'm going to be a grandmother. My eldest is having his first child. Do you think he'd be worried if I was sent off on an expedition? To chart the unknown? No, he just wanted to make sure that I'd be able to send a few vids of advice in handling a newborn, and at the least, I'd be back for the child's first birthday next year. He also complained how expensive gene therapy was. Gene therapy, which wasn't possible when I was a kid, and was brand new when I was his age. We get bored, we complain, someone makes money making something new. That's about all there is to it. They were quiet. They turned off the device and spoke amongst themselves for a while, as I just chuckled, thinking about how I described our entire species. Finally, they turned my device back on and asked us if we could teach them how to be bored. I smiled and said that we could try, but we might get bored of it before long. That's how our first contact worked. I never did tell them about the explosives on the shuttle. I became a media sensation for a little while. Then, the next news cycle, everyone was going crazy about the Xeno fashion sense. They made me ambassador, which worked all right. They still ask me to give workshops on boredom. I find it hilarious they now have advanced degrees on making things mundane to try and hold their slim edge over us in technology. But it's not going to work. No one is better than humans at being bored. Taken from an interview with ex-ambassador and retired Admiral Tina Perry. Similar topics include the virtue of laziness, making boredom work for you, a beginner's guide, how to make a fortune teaching Xenos about mundane in 6 easy steps. Hot clicks 10 things you don't know about jump travel. Wardrobe malfunction or publicity stunt. What would you know about the recent presidential debate? Are there actually hot Xeno singles in your area? What dating sites don't want you to know? End of story. Oh, itchy nose. All right, end of story. Basically, humanity has ADD, and we're not ashamed of it. It's our superpower. Yeah. So the reason why I forgot the title is because it was clickbait. Really? All right. Hydration. Yes, definitely. Makes a nice added addition. Gigantic, good afternoon, or evening, or morning. I hope you're doing well. Alrighty. So I put a new beard oil, I put beard oil on. It was a bottle that I've only used once before, and now I know why. It's got such a strong smell that it's actually affecting my throat. Which is not good. Yes, loud bottle. Everything's just a little off today, for some reason. I don't know. It's just complicated.
I just want to sit down here and have some words with you guys, but apparently I'm not allowed to. Alrighty, next story. Move that over there. Okay. No, Kevin, I don't. So all the old stories will still be around, because preserve history. Not ashamed of them, but it's nice also as a comparison. Yes, the boss / cat decided to mess everything up and then leave graciously. Nostalgia also works. Not nostalgia for me, but I'm probably the least important person when it comes to views. You guys are the most important when it comes to views. Yep. That works. Fair enough, Marcus, fair enough. I mean, I like to think I've improved, but maybe some people prefer the older style to the newer one. One never knows. I don't know. 5. Let's go with that one. Okay, main character is female, not male. So we'll just change that to F1. 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 M10. F1. M10. F1. M1. M10. F1. M10. F1. M1. M1. M18. F1. Yeah, definitely a lot of voices, but that goes with the job. M3, M4, M3, M4, M3, M4, M3, F1, M1, 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 M1. M8. F1. M8. Oh. It's got a whole host of store over. Yeah. So you probably don't want to force voices. You just want to push it so that you can do it. But if you force it too much, you can get laryngitis or strain. Excuse me. Yeah, I won't. I mean, we've done one story. I'll probably do 2 or 3 today. It is what it is. Tickety-tack, tickety-tack. M13. Yep, definitely throwing all the voices in. Keep going like this, I'm going to have to reuse some voices. Oh, the shame. Never. Okay, maybe a bit. Yes, this beard oil is definitely messing with my sinuses. So definitely getting thrown away. Okay, that is the story. We didn't run out of voices. Yes! We didn't have to go to Dude Bro for a serious conversation, which would be funny, but maybe not thematic. Dude, why did you start the war? Whoa! Why are you bombarding us, man? Yeah, you don't really want that voice in a serious conversation. Alrighty. Proceed. You over there. You over here. And over there. Video recording. Audio recording. And on we go. Alright. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-Tifos, where I take old stories that I've read and update them to modern standards. This particular story is called No Quasar, Asteroid, Solar Flare, War, or Supernova, written by Regal Legal Eagle. I just don't get it. I really wished that he would shut up. There was almost always one of these fresh-faced graduates on the nicer cruises. I just wanted to get my fuel, drink a cup of hot recaf, and be on my way. But every time I stood around waiting, someone would come by and ruin what could have been a nice time. Well, not every time, but far more often than I wanted. So I dunked another hardtack in the coffee and sent him a sort of look that I hoped would kill him, or at least make him shut up. I waste so much money on such an outdated organization. I mean, sure, some citizens miss out, but what's the point in spending so much on so few? No such luck. He stared at me expectantly for a moment, and then I realized he wanted me to argue. Well, he could wait. I made sure to stir the coffee with a hardtack for a moment before pouring it out and shaking a bit to get most of the dripping to stop before biting into the less hard biscuit. I chewed nice and slow before finally swallowing. Then I took a sip of coffee, swished it around in my mouth before swallowing, and then spoke up. There is no place the hegemony can't reach. He stared at me. I stared at him. I shifted the uneaten piece of hardtack in my fingers and dunked it again, waiting for him to figure it out. That's it. That's all you have to say. We spent how many trillions last year on the Navy, or the Marines, or any other number of such branches of the military, and you're concerned about 2 billion being spent, more or less, on citizens who press the boundaries of the great nation. We can't project them. We can project our military might just about anywhere, but sometimes it's not about sending a message of power. Sometimes it's about taking care of our own, even in some small way. Yes, but how many jump engines are there? Every ship you guys use. He kept talking, but I was chewing on the other piece of hardtack in order to drown out what he was saying. Some people just didn't get it. I saw the crew chief step out from behind my ship, and he gave me a thumbs up. You're all filled up, he said. All filled up. You're all filled up. Hey, thanks. Hey, thanks. The graduate stopped when he realized that I hadn't been listening. I downed most of the recaf before handing him a cup. Thanks for the recaf. He looked into the cup as I opened the hatch. to climb into my ship.
There was just enough time. There was just enough in it. There was just enough in it that if he tossed the cup, it would spill, and the deck chief would rip him a new one, meaning he'd have to carry it back to the crew pit to throw it away. Meaning that he'd have to carry it back to the crew pit to throw it away in the bin. By the time I made it into the cockpit, he'd figured it out and scowled in my direction. He couldn't see me, of course. The heat paint on the view screen was one way, but still I smiled seeing him stop. But I smiled, seeing him start to stomp off towards the pit. I began systems check as I got control on the line. Hicks 688 online, please. Hicks 688 online. Thanks for the fuel, fellas, and your recap ain't bad.
Sure, Hicks. Sure thing, Hicks. I saw you talking to our newest know-it-all. Break his heart?
I laughed and shook my head. He just didn't feel like my services was required, and I'm overpaid. I could hear the control team laugh.
Yeah, Hicks are overpaid. Why do you even get such a crap job? You could be a fighter pilot, you know.
Nah, just not my thing. I like seeing someone smile when they see me.
Well, you have a good run, Hick. If I'm reading your flight plan right, you've got a civil war to fly through just on your first leg.
I snorted at that and shook my head as I warmed the engines up now that the system check was done. No quasar, asteroid, solar flare, war, or supernova shall stop me from my job, for I am the hegemony imperial courier, and so long as my lungs carry breath, I shall continue. I'll bring the messages, I shall carry the packages, and I shall deliver them to our citizens. The hegemony reaches all, and so do the couriers. There was some chuckles, and I think I heard someone try to start a slow clap before it died out.
You do us all proud, says Savior. You do us all proud. Safe travels, Sam.
Hey, who said you could use my actual name? Hey, who said you could use my actual name? I'm Hick to you, miserable military types. Always oppressing the little guy just because I don't have any weapons on my ship. If I see a fragile package with your name on it, I'll use it as a seat cushion before I hand it over. Before handing it over, there was more laughter, and I disengaged the locks and began to back out of the cruiser. Once I was clear, I quickly flipped around and shot off towards the nearest nav beacon while taking a glance at my route. It looked... Oops. That is true. I done messed up. Which means I get to start over again. Thank you, too, for sending me super chats to remind me about the green screen. Unfortunately, the super chats don't make a noise when I record. Just shows you how much little attention I pay to the chat when I'm narrating. Yeah. Oh well, these things happen. I'm surprised the Twitch one didn't make a noise. Oh, I know why, because I don't have it on. No? Don't know. But thank you all. It's appreciated. But we get to start again, which is great, because my voice isn't doing so great. It's typical, basically. Alrighty. Here we go again. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-Tifos, where I take stories that I've done before and update them to the current standards. This particular story is called No Quasar, Asteroid, Solar Flare, War, or Supernova, written by Regal Legal Eagle. Not to worry, Postmatic, it's all fine. These mistakes happen. Even when I'm not streaming them, these mistakes happen. It's Schrodinger's mistake, basically. Yeah, I just don't get it. I really wished that he would shut up. There was almost always one of these fresh-faced graduates on the nicer cruises. I just wanted to get my fuel, drink a cup of hot recaf, and be on my way. But every time I stood around waiting for some,
But every time I stood around waiting, someone would come by and ruin what could be a nice time. Well, not every time, but far more often than I wanted. So I just dunked another hardtack in the coffee and sent him the sort of look that I hoped would kill him, or make him shut up. Why waste so much money on such an outdated organization? I mean, sure, some citizens miss out, but what's the point of spending so much on so few? No such luck. He stared at me expectantly for a moment, and then I realized he wanted me to argue. Well, he could wait. I made sure to stir the coffee with the hardtack for a moment before putting it out and shaking a bit to get most of the dripping to stop, before biting into the less hard biscuit. I chewed nice and slow before finally swallowing. Then I took a sip of the coffee, swishing it around my mouth before swallowing, and then spoke up. There is no place the hegemony can't reach. He stared at me. I stared at him. I shifted the uneaten piece of hardtack in my fingers and dunked it again, waiting for him to figure it out. That's it. That's all you have to say. We spent how many trillions last year on the Navy, or the Marines, or any number of such branches of the military, and you're concerned about $2 billion being spent on more or less on the citizens who press the boundaries of the great nation. On citizens who press the boundaries of our great nation, we can project military might just about anywhere, but sometimes it's not about sending a message of power. Sometimes it's about taking care of our own, even if some small way. Yes, but how many jump engines are there? Every ship you guys use? He kept talking, but I was chewing on the other piece of hardtack in order to drown out what he was saying. Some people just didn't get it. I saw the crew chief step out from behind the ship and gave me a thumbs up. You're all filled up. Hey, thanks. The graduate stopped when he realized I hadn't been listening. I downed most of the recap before handing him the cup. Thanks for the recap. He looked into the cup as I opened the hatch to climb into my ship. There was just enough in it that if he tossed the cup, it would spill on the deck, and there was just enough. Now I've got flashing things over here. Right. There was just enough in it that if he tossed the cup, it would spill, and the deck chief would rip him a new one, meaning that he'd have to carry it back to the crew pit to throw it away into the bin. By the time I'd made it up into the cockpit, he had figured it out and scowled in my direction. He couldn't see me, of course. The heat paint on the view screen was one way, but I still smiled, seeing him start to stomp off towards the pit. I began a systems check as I got control online. Hicks 688 online, thank you for the full. Hicks 688 online, thanks for the fuel. Thanks for the fuel, fellas, and your recap ain't bad. Sure thing, Hicks. I saw you talking to our newest know-it-all. Break his heart? I laughed and shook my head. He just didn't feel that my services was required and that I'm overpaid. I could hear the control team laugh. Yeah, Hicks are overpaid. Why do you even do such a crap job? You could be a fighter pilot, you know. Just not my thing. I like seeing someone smile when they see me. Well, you have a good run, Hick. If I'm reading your flight plan right, you've got a civil war to fly through just on your first leg. I snorted at that and shook my head as I warmed the engine. I snorted at that and shook my head as I warmed the engines up now that the system check was done. No quasar, asteroid, solar flare, war, or supernova shall keep me from my job, for I am the hegemony imperial courier, and so long as my lungs carry breath, I shall continue. I will bring the message, I shall carry the packages, and I will deliver them to our citizens. The hegemony reaches all, and so do the couriers. There was some chuckles, and I think I heard someone trying to slow clap. Start to slow clap before it died out. You do us all proud. Safe travels, Sam. Hey, who said you could use my action? Hey,
Who said you could actually use my name? I'm hick to you miserable military types, always oppressing the little guy just because I don't have any weapons on my ship. If I see a fragile package with your name on it, I'll use it as a seat cushion before handing it over." There was more laughter as I disengaged the locks and began to back out of the cruiser. Once I was clear, I quickly flipped around and shot off towards the nearest nav beacon while taking a glance at my route. It seemed Control had been right about the red zone designation. Wonderful. Well, it couldn't be helped. I punched in the coordinates and then overrode the safety warnings and kept the engine running at full speed as I went into the jump. Strictly speaking, running a high speed and jumping is incredibly dangerous because you have no idea what might be just in front of you on the other side. But I'd long ago learned that when you were entering a war zone, it helped to have full head of steam. But I'd learned long ago that when you're entering a war zone, it helped to have a full head of steam going. When I punched through the ink space back into reality, I was glad that I was still moving. "Collision warning, lock-on warning, explosion warning," the computer began to whine at me while I growled. "Yes, thank you, warnings noted," I added. I had found that the thing got snippy if I cussed it too much. So I'd learned to quickly turn it off with a few choice phrases and then go about the business of keeping myself alive, which right now involved dodging the missiles and weapons fire being launched between two fleets. I grit my teeth as I heard something hard bounced off the hull. This old girl barely had any original paint, but I knew that the Hicks symbol was still visible, which meant the beam counters wouldn't give it a new paint job yet. "Non-identified vessel." "Yeah." "Non-identified vessel." "You're in the Galactic Republic territory." "No, they're in learned democracy territory." "Identify yourself or be fired upon." "Or be arrested and await trial." "Trial? Can it learn scum?" "I'm the hegemony, so you can both feck off." "I am hegemony, so you can both feck right off," I muttered and turned off the comm unit. I saw the lock-on warnings and quickly triggered chaff. As I spun through the tight cluster of warheads. 3 cruisers, a dreadnought, no carriers. Good. But there was an assault trawler. I quickly throttled back and tucked into the flow of the assault pods being dropped onto the planet before checking the weapons warnings. Whoever was dropping the pods didn't want to fire on me, since I was in the middle of their troops, and the other side was busy trying to shoot down the pods, so they didn't care about a rogue courier ship. I saw the burning city I was flying into and quickly checked the address on my screen. Not here, thank God. Just as the assault pods began to brake for landing, I flew under the first wave and then angled off away from the city. Some flak fire rattled the hull, but nothing direct. It wasn't a bad looking world, a little swampy, but there were mountains and some drier areas. Nice looking pair of moons. I checked the map on my screen and quickly approached the city half a continent away from the one being landed on. There was still spaceport emitting an open signal, so I swept in over it as fast and slow. Fast and low before killing the throttle and then hitting the landing gear. I could hear the ship groan as the inertia dampeners fought to keep me from turning into red paste on the wall before I settled down on the pad nearest the customer's building. I was the only ship in a good-sized port, so I knew I wanted to make this quick. Once more I overrode safety protocols and kept the engines warm as I climbed out of the pilot's chair and back to the main room. This looked like it could get rough, so I quickly pulled on a tight courier armor I was provided. While my ship didn't have weapons, I was given a standard-issue Peacemaker shotgun, since long ago they'd realized sometimes people tried to rob couriers, and that wasn't allowed. I checked the 3 packages and the message cylinder to make sure that they were all for the same person.
And this was the right place before opening the hatch and climbing out. I had the package satchel and shotgun slung over my back and hopped out. I had the package satchel and shotgun slung over my back and hoped that the local security could tell the difference between Marines and Hicks. It was on both shoulders, my chest and my back, but sometimes even all of that wasn't enough. I glanced around. Hydration. Cheers, everyone. I glanced around the landing pads, though, and it seemed like I didn't have anything to worry about. No one was heading my way at all. It was a bit humid and hot, but I could see the sky getting a bit darker, so it would soon be night. Locking the hatch behind me, I jogged towards the customs building. I could see Xenos inside, some shredding documents, others frantically running around. No one was up behind the strong glass where they'd normally help new arrivals. I began to pound my fist on the window until one of the figures looked my way. He was clearly confused for a moment, and then approached.
Are you part of the invasion?
What? No. Why would I knock a Hegemony Imperial Courier Service? The creature's eyes went wide.
Courier service? Here? Now?
Yes. I slapped the tracking paper on the window. Where is this?
That's over by...
He said some things my translator couldn't figure out, so they must be proper names. I need directions a translator can use. Near? Far?
Oh, right. Sorry. It's in the financial district, about 2 miles.
The automated translator voice filled in whatever he had tried to say in his local tongue.
All right. Well, how do I get there? Down the main street and outside the spaceport. Turn right. Follow it to the blue statue. Turn left. Keep going. It's the one with the big buildings in the square around the fake lake. I think it's white.
Public transportation?
Are you kidding me? No, everything's shut down. Are you kidding me? No, everything's shut down.
That's what I figured, but it never hurt to ask.
Got any suggestions on how to get there? Hi.
He fumbled with his words for a moment, or else used some slang the translator didn't get, before I finally understood him.
No, I can't think of anything.
I checked the clock on my HUD and looked around the empty spaceport for a moment. All right, I'll be back. Don't touch my ship.
You're insane. You're delivering packages. Here? Now?
I already said yes, I commented as I began to move. There was stray pieces of luggage here and there in the causeways and next to the terminals, not much else. It seemed like those that could had already left. I was confident the anti-theft device on my ship would deter anyone who thought that they could use my ship to still escape. I glanced around the outside of the spaceport and saw more than a few abandoned speeders. I started with the ones at the edge of the pile-up, leaning inside and pressing the start buttons. Finally, a 2-seater without a top started up, and I tossed the shotgun and satchel into the passenger seat before hopping in. It seemed like this delivery wouldn't be too bad after all. I cruised down the main street just like the customs agent had said. There was a blue statue. There was very little traffic on the road. Just a few speeders here and there. One military convoy of some sort heading out of town. They didn't shoot at me as I zipped by, which was a plus. When I got near the group of large buildings, I spotted the lake. There was a big white building on the other side. Very modern. Or at least human modern. I was about to drive up onto the sidewalk when someone started shooting at me. Cursing, I quickly tried to pull off to the side, but a blown... I quickly tried to pull off to the side, but a blown tire had me spinning out into an empty bus. I hopped out, grabbing the shotgun and huddling in the small space in between the back of the speedster and the bus. "Are you one that came
Are you the one that came in that fast little ship? I heard someone call out from behind the speeders on the other side of the street. Yes, we want it. Too bad, they replied by shooting the speeder for a while. I reached over the edge and grabbed the satchel before lying flat on the crawlway under the bus. Before lying flat and crawling under the bus to the far side. Once out from under the bus, I quickly got up and ran around the corner into the square with a lake. I didn't know if they were behind me, but I broke out into a full sprint, heading towards the white building. I heard some yelling behind me, and a few rounds cracked past. I ducked, even though I was well aware that crack meant the bullets would pass me already. Hard to break instinct. Then there was a louder crack that was going the other way, and I saw a gleam from the open window about halfway up the building. Someone had my back, I hoped. Sure enough, no one else shot at me as I kept up the sprint until I reached the building. I had to slow down to avoid slamming into a glass door and knocked before they slid open. I saw a collection of Xenos in various gear that had the same symbol painted on the chest. They looked like professionals. Good for me. Hegemony Imperial Courier Service, I said as I panted. Hands on my knees as I was trying to catch my breath after that sprint. Then I straightened up and held out a tracking paper. 25th floor, one of the Xenos said and pointed to the lifts. I nodded and gave a wave as I stepped into a nice wood-paneled lifts and hit the proper button. There was a soft rumble as the magnets made the lift glide up and stopped gently on the right floor. When I stepped out, I could see a collection of people around the table with a map of the city. Just one human in executive battle gear. That really nice expensive stuff that weighed less than what I had on, but had more protection than the Marine Standard issue. Mr. Calfway? I asked as I stepped up behind him. He leaned up from the table and turned to face me. He blinked in surprise and then smiled. I loved that smile. It was such a wonderful way to be greeted after working so hard to get you.
That's me. Hicks, huh? Bad timing, it seems.
I've had worse deliveries. I gave a shrug and held up the tracking paper. Sign here. He signed off and I heard the beep before handing him the satchel. He opened it and pulled out the message cylinder first. After setting his thumb on it to activate the lock, he pulled out a small chit and signed. His smile grew even wider, and I could tell it was good news.
I'm a dad,
he yelled out and then began to laugh and jump a little.
I'm a father, guys.
I could see some of the Xenos didn't get it, so I quickly tossed up my hands. Congratulations, boy or girl.
Boy! Hey, what's your name?
Sam.
I'll name our next kid after you.
What? Not good enough for your first? He laughed and slapped me on the shoulder, and then just hugged me. I hugged him back. Births were some of the best delivery announcements.
Here, you gotta celebrate with me.
Sorry, Mr. Calfway.
Andy,
but I gotta get back to my ship.
A drink, at the very least. I don't become a father every day, you know, and I have a message to send back, so we have to wait.
All right. I took my helmet off and shook out my hair. For a moment as he arched his brows in surprise.
You're a woman.
Yeah? Is that not allowed? He laughed and shrugged.
Guess I didn't expect it is all. Well, Sam works for a boy or a girl, doesn't it? So, you'll have the kid named after you, I promise.
He pushed past the Xenos, walking over to a big desk in a big office and pulling out a bottle of something I didn't recognize but looked expensive. He poured 2 glasses of cloudy liquid and brought them back, handing me one.
To the Hegemony Imperial Courier Services,
he said with a grin. We raised our drinks and then took a sip before I rose mine once more. To parenthood, he echoed, and we drank once more, and I couldn't imagine how hard the stuff would hit me and how wonderfully smooth it went down. He quickly programmed a message onto a chit and then stuffed it back into the messenger cylinder, which he handed back to me.
Sure you can't stay and celebrate?
I'm sure. The Hicks never rests. I paused for a moment. For long. He laughed and held out a credit chip. I tried to wave him off, but he firmly tucked it into the package satchel, which he handed back.
I insist.
Well, either way, think that you can spare a ride back to the spaceport?
He laughed and nodded. Sure can. Anything for the Hicks.
He spoke into a comm relay on his wrist then.
Team Bravo, I'm sending you a VIP. See her safely to the spaceport.
I heard some sort of comm burst, which likely meant affirmative, and he nodded at me.
Take the lift to the basement.
Thanks.
Think nothing of it.
I turned to walk away when he called out,
No, wait.
I looked back, and he opened one of the packages, handing me a true sealed container.
Chocolate chip cookies my mum sent. They won't be hot, but they will be fresh.
Hey, you don't need to.
I insist.
He pressed the cylinder into my hand and smiled. I hefted it and nodded. Much appreciated, Andy. You stay safe out here.
You too.
As I stepped into the lift, I popped the seal on the container just to smell the contents, groaning a little. They were still fresh, all right. Sometimes it was the little things about being a Hicks. I checked my HUD. 8 more packages before my next rest day. Not bad. Then I noticed the next one. Then I noticed where the next one was going and groaned out, Damn it, not the Canis Confederation. Damn it, not the Canis Confederacy. They're the worst about Hicks. All part of the job. End of story. All right. Done. A little bit of a false start, but we got there in the end. Good morning, Wolfhouse. I hope you're doing well. I think that's all I'm going to record for today. Voice is doing a little dry. But such is life. So we just need to do some backgrounds. Awesome, Wolfos. Sounds quite a cozy morning. What? Mid-journey is down. Yep, mid-journey is down. So, no background. No
things. Thumbnails. Welcome back, Marcus. So, the lesson today was removing all the distractions for while I read. It's not always a good thing, especially when I make a mistake. Yeah, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. It goes down every now and again, but not for long. But I think I'm going to call it a day and go throw this beard oil away because it's very much affecting my voice for some reason. So thank you all for spending your time with me. It's very much appreciated. Hopefully I was entertaining enough to warrant that time. We'll be back tomorrow to record some more stuff. So I'll see you all then. Thank you again for everything. Cheers.